today I wanted to talk about yarn weight and why yarns that are all considered a 5 or a 4 or a 6 can be completely different. I'm going to post a link in the description that talks about a little bit about it more in detail, but I just wanted to show you. So I saw somebody ask this question on a page, and so I thought I would do a little video on it so you could see what I'm talking about. So here in the United States, some of the most popular ones are a number 4, a number 5, and a number 6. And on your yarn label, it will tell you the weight right here. It will also give a recommended needle or hook size, depending on whether you crochet or knit. And there is actually a website, I'll put it in the description, that I believe Kristen at Good Knit Kisses did, which gives you a corresponding loom. So in other words, if it says use US number 8 5mm needles, it will tell you, okay, you need to use a fine or a small or a fine gauge loom. Okay, so here in the United States, your yarn will be weighted. However, even though you may have yarns that are all number 4s, that doesn't necessarily mean they will be the same. Okay, I'm going to show you here. So any of you that have used Caron Simply Soft know that once you have the same tension on it, it is a lot thinner when you knit it up than Red Heart is. Okay, so for instance, this is Red Heart Super Saver. Okay, and this is Caron Simply Soft. Caron on top, Red Heart on the bottom. This is Red Heart. Okay, let's see if I can zoom in. Get this close for you to see. It's hard to see here, but you know, they look similar, but when you knit them up, the Caron under tension, see when I pull them tight, when I pull them, see the Caron here thins out a lot more than the Red Heart does. So under tension, it behaves differently. Even the Red Heart, if I look at the Red Heart Super Saver Solid versus the stripes, which is one of, if you take any of the color ombres, stripes, or multis, they're usually going to be slightly thinner than the solid colors. Okay, it's just how it's all in how they're spun. It has to do with how many plies of yarn are spun together. Okay, like Red Heart has 1, 2, 3. This one has 4 plies. See all the 1, 2, 3, 4 plies? And let's see if Caron Simply Soft, I'm not really sure how many they have. They have 4 plies as well. Even though they're all acrylic, they vary greatly, okay? So let's go to number 5s. Okay, I'm trying to get enough light on this so that you can see it. So in the number 5 category, we have Unique by Lion Brand, Charisma, Loops and Threads Michaels, Hobby Lobby's, I love this chunky, and Lion Brand Homespun. These are all categorized as number 5s. You can see they are quite a bit different even though they're all number 5s. This one, of course, is the Homespun is different because it's like a roving yarn that has a twist in it. I really don't like this Hobby Lobby's. I love this chunky. I really don't like it because see how it separates? It's only, I think it's only 2, is it 2 plies? Yeah, I think it's only 2 plies twisted together, and it's just, I don't like the way it looks, and it knits up a lot thinner. So what you have to determine is, what does the yarn do when it's under tension, right? So when you have it tensioned out, so to speak, what does it look like? Okay, this one is really stretchy, this Charisma from Michaels. I really like it. It's soft and stretchy, but I prefer it on a 1/2 inch gauge loom, even though I can use a 5/8 inch gauge. The Lion Brand is even thinner. So you look at the difference in the Hobby Lobbies. I love this Chunky and Lion brand. And I like the Hobby Lobby on a 1/2 inch gauge as well. And I've done most of these on various gauges of looms. And I have another video on loom gauge if you need to look at that. This one is really pretty. This is a self-striping yarn, and I have a video on self-striping yarns. But I really like using it on the smaller gauge loom on the 1/2 inch because it looks really, really pretty, and it ends up being nice and densely knitted when it's on a smaller gauge. If you did this on a bigger gauge, you would have more of an open mesh look. So this is 1/2 inch of this Lion brand yarn. The Charisma from Michaels, I have made, this was made on the 5/8 inch 48 peg loom, and it knitted up very nicely as well. I'm currently doing it on a 1/2 inch gauge, and I like it. It's a little tighter, and just I really like the way this feels, and it has a lot of stretch. So the loom that you use is really going to be dependent on how much stretch your yarn has. This is really tough to loom with because, as you can see, the plies tend to come untwisted, so your hook ends up getting in between them, and it's just really fussy to try to work with. Okay, in the number 6 category of all of our yarns, so we have Hometown USA, Loops and Threads from Michaels, Loops and Threads Country Loom, Bernat Blanket, and Bernat Softy Chunky. So as you can see, these are all given a weight of number 6, and they're actually all relatively different. I guess you could say even the Hometown USA is bigger than the Softy Chunky. And the Bernat Blanket, of course, is not a spun, in other words, it doesn't have several plies twisted together like the others. So it ends up knitting up really, really thick. And the Country Loom, of course, is a textured type of yarn, so it's almost like a roving with a twist in it. So these are all number 6s. Once again, they're all going to knit up quite differently when you get them on your loom. So even though yarns are given the same weight, they'll knit up differently. And a lot of times for me, it's mostly, more than anything, it's a trial and error to see how they'll knit up on different gauge looms. What is good to do is to do a swatch, okay? So you can just do a small swatch on whatever loom you think you want to use your yarn with. Okay, so if you, like on these, you can definitely use the extra large 3/4 inch gauge with this because these are nice and bulky. But if you make yourself a swatch and use the stitches that you're going to use, for instance, this here in the middle is an E-wrap, and you see how that's a lot larger. This is done on the 5/8 inch gauge loom. This is a true knit stitch. So as I had mentioned in my last video, the stitch that you use is also going to determine how large or how densely knit your piece will be, whether it's a hat or a scarf or other item. Up here, I didn't do very much up here. This is called a U-knit. It's super tight. I rarely ever use it. I would probably only use U-knit if I was using a very small gauge loom with a worsted number 4 yarn. So you can knit up little swatches, do about, I think these have 10 or 12 stitches. And then you can see whether it's going to have a lot of holes in it, and you say, oh, I need to go to a smaller gauge loom, or maybe I need to do a different stitch. So if you take one loom, okay, and use one yarn and do the E-wrap and do the true knit, and then maybe even do the U-wrap stitch, you can see how tight it's going to be and get an idea of what it will look like. So that is your Yarn 101. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for watching.